explore the remedy Psorinum today. All know it is a very well proved remedy, but still we don't find much prescription of Psorinum in our daily practice. So the main idea is to understand the theme of Psorinum. So let us study step by step the different ideas about this remedy Psorinum. To begin with, let us understand how it is prepared. So we see the remedy Psorinum was prepared from the seropurulent matter contained in the scabies vesicle. Scabies itself does not produce purulence. Purulent scabies vesicles are the result of secondary bacterial infection induced by scratching. However, secondary bacterial infection of scabies lesion is common and can involve a range of both aerobic and anaerobic bacteria such as staphylococci, streptococci, and so on. So let us see about the provings. So Master Herring performed the proving on himself, and he prepared the nosode Sorin, and he explains like in the autumn of 1830 he collected the pus from the each pustules of a young and otherwise healthy negro. He had been handling some stuff from Germany and had thus been infected, but what whether by means of Icari or not, he cannot say. So these pustules were full of large yellow vesicles, particularly between the fingers on the hands and forearms. And he opened these unscratched pustules, and for several days in succession he did that and collected the pus in a vial with alcohol, and after shaking it, and then he prepared that nosode and did the proving with this on healthy provers. Now let us understand the main sphere of action of Psorinum. So we see in Fataks Materia Medica it is given, it chiefly affects the skin, especially the folds of skin, sebaceous gland, ears, bowels, respiration, and so on. So that's the main sphere of action of Psorinum. Now let us begin with the basics. First we'll see the keynotes of the Psorinum, what we know. So when we open Allen's keynote, we see it is written, it is very useful in chronic cases when well selected remedies fail to relieve or permanently improve. Even in the cases where sulfur seems to be indicated but fails to act. So we can think of the remedy Psorinum in that. Then we see there is great weakness and debility from loss of animal fluids or weakness remaining after acute diseases, or it is either independent of or without any organic lesion or any apparent cause. So in all these situations we can think of the remedy Psorinum. Then we see it has a great sensitiveness to cold air. They'll wear a fur even in the summer, even in the hottest weather they'll wear that. So it's a very chilly remedy. Then a very peculiar symptom, hungry in the middle of the night, must have something to it, just as senna and sulfur. Then a very interesting symptom, normally in gonorrhea we think of remedies like medorinum, but here it is given chronic gonorrhea of years duration that can neither be suppressed nor cured. The best selected remedy fails, then in such cases we have to think of our remedy Psorinum. And Ellen has specially mentioned in the end of this remedy Psorinum that it should not be given for psora or psoric diathesis, but like every other remedy, upon a strict individualization, the totality of symptoms, and then we will realize its wonderful effect. So, to understand this sentence by Ellen, that we have to individualize the case and then accordingly we have to give the remedy. So for that we need to understand the main idea of Psorinum. What is Psorinum? And then we read from Boger Synoptic Key. We see feels sick all over. There is a lack of reaction. Recurrence given in capital letters and written as clears up confused cases where we don't know which remedy to give or the remedy is not helping the case. So we can think of this remedy Psorinum in such cases. Now, Dr. Sarkar uses the Psorinum very much in cancer cases, especially in breast cancers. And sulfur follows well to Psorinum in such cases. That's one of the indication of Psorinum. Now let us try to understand the theme or the idea of Psorinum with the help of repertory. As we saw, the main action of Psorinum is on skin. So first we'll understand the skin symptoms of Psorinum. So when we see in the repertory, we see it has a dirty, filthy and greasy type of skin. Then we see the eruptions are very much moist, offensive and fetid. Then we see this itching. It has a lot of itching and we have to scratch and it scratches until it kind of bleeds, the blood oozes out. Till then you have to scratch. Now we see an interesting thing. The skin eruptions, it alternates with some internal complaints. For example, skin eruptions with metastasis to lungs. So then we see the eruptions on hairy part, unusual. And we see there is great sensitiveness to change in weather. They're extremely aggravated from winter and they kind of feel better in summer. Now we'll understand the mind symptoms of Psorinum with the help of rubrics. So we see the main feeling in Psorinum is this feeling of despair. When we see the rubric despair, it is given in 4 marks. Let us try to understand why he is having this feeling. So when we read different sub-rubrics of despair, we understand that we'll see despair from itching, despair from sadness, despair about future, despair about recovery, despair with weakness, despair religious, despair with fever, and so on. So we see in every aspect this despair is coming in through and through. So it is one of the main theme of Psorinum. Now we see another interesting rubric, discourage. And we see Psorinum is given in 3 marks. We see doubtful recovery of. He is very much doubtful whether he will get cured or not. So and we see pessimist. Again we see Psorinum in 3 marks. So what do we observe here? He is very much doubtful, he is very much discouraged, he is a lot of despair, pessimist. So on one side we see this complete negative things, negative thoughts, and it has a alternating state. On the other hand, we'll see hopefulness about recovery. Again, we see the remedy Sorinum. So here we see this alternating states in mind as well. On one side, we'll see lot of despair, discourageness, and pessimist, negative thoughts, and on other side, he's very much hopeful. No, he'll recover. This thing will happen. We see this alternating states. Then we have lot of fears. Fear about misfortune. Again, something will happen. He continuously has this fear. Then we see fear of poverty. Then we see fear of disaster. We see one of the remedies, Sorinum here. So let us understand the main theme of Sorinum through these rubrics. What is the main idea, crux of Sorinum? So we, in Seigel's understanding, we have some few important rubrics to understand this remedy Sorinum. Delusion, he is poor. We will see the main remedy as Sorinum. Then we have delusion, fortune that he is going to lose his. And again we see the remedy Sorinum in it. So what do we understand through this symptom? Delusion, doomed being, that he'll be having very much unfortunate outcome or inescapable outcome. So what does this delusions explain us? In our childhood, we all must have seen this cartoon, Uncle Scrooge. So this tells us the main idea of the Sorinum. So this is the main idea of Sorinum. Fear of poverty, prosperous although, given by Patak. It's a single remedy rubric. So it tells us that although he is prosperous, he constantly always has this feeling that he'll become poor. And that's the main idea of Sorinum. He always has this grief about financial issues. He'll have a financial loss and so on. He has this grief, fear. Then he has a lot of thoughts crowding over each other, intruding when he wakes up, especially during that time. So we see one of the main remedies as Sorinum. Then we have these persistent thoughts, but disagreeable. All negative thinking, this negative, this will happen, that will happen, all that thing. Then we see with all these thoughts, with all this negativity, what he does, he torments others. Whoever is there around him, he'll keep on tormenting them. Then we see this symptom, he feels well before becoming ill. So, but once he gets ill, then he'll not leave anybody. We see this interesting, torment those around him with his complaints. He'll kind of torture everyone with his symptoms and complaints. Then we see other symptoms of Sorinum, like continuous desire to wash the hands, as we see in Syphilinum. We also have this in Sorinum, a kind of OCD. Then we see it's almost like a mania, washing, bathing, desire for mania. And we see again here the remedy Sorinum. Then another theme of Sorinum is this dirtiness, as we saw in the skin, very dirty, filthy skin, all oozing out, offensive discharges. We see this dirtiness even in the mind sphere. We see dirtiness, we see the remedy Surinam here. Then we understand it with the dreams. We see he has these dreams of toilet. Then we see the dreams of stool. So we see this dirtiness as one of the theme of Surinam. We'll see this in the mind as well as in the physical state. Now let us try to understand it with the help of newer materia medicas. For example, we'll take The Spirit of Homeopathy by Dr. Rajan Shankaran, my guru. He has very well explained the main idea of Sorainam. What is there? So we see Sorainam is a man who has tried to climb a mountain, but somewhere along the way he is stuck, and there he can neither go up nor he can go down, and both the way he feels as too risky. He is scared to move, and he has a lot of fear with despair. Then he doubts his capacity. He's scared not only from the his capacity or incapacity, he feels that there is a danger from outside, and that kind of threat he has in that particular situation. And we see an interesting example given, that for example sulfur is very much optimistic. Sulfur comes very close to Sorainum. So you see, sulfur is very much optimistic. He thinks he is great and he can do anything. Even the tuberculinum, they have a strong desire for travel and adventure. But Sorainum will get into adventure. He'll reach at a particular point and then it becomes very much difficult for him to do. And we see sulfur and tuberculinum are complementary to Sorainum. So he has mentioned about the incidents in his book where he had traveled to Himalayas with one of his friends, and they were climbing a mountain. It was a big mountain. So they started climbing, and at one point where they reached, they found as if like they cannot move forward nor they can go back, and they had this near kind of death experience. So what was the experience in that particular situation? So he says that he felt totally hopeless. I had a strong fear that this was the last moment of my life, and because of this there was a total despair, a feeling on one side that it is better to let go of life and die, and on the other side there was a lot of irresolution, anticipating, no, I can do it. And so we see this kind of alternating states here. So with the help of this remedy Sorainum, we can understand the miasm. What is the soric miasm? So we have newer miasms to understand the different remedies, different cases and all. So we have these 10 miasms, and one of them is the soric miasm. So how to correlate this with the miasm? So let us understand. It's very beautifully given in the book. So it says the situation of a soric miasm is a difficult one where the patient has to struggle in order to succeed. So we see this important word struggle continuously, and it has two things: stress from outside and the anxiety or doubt about his own capacity to deal with that stress. And he has this feeling, he is hopeful, and failure does not mean the end of the world. So that's the two component of this sodic miasm. And it has given the example of sulfur, we know, as the king of antisoric remedies. We see delusion, he is thin, delusion, disgrace, fear of poverty, talking about business, imagines himself as a great man, and all these things. But we find in sulfur also the struggle with ego and money. The feeling is that the person is losing something and he must struggle in order to get it back. We see sulfur in the right side of the periodic table. So we see on the right side it is going down in the downward direction, that he is losing something and he has to struggle in order to maintain that. So this shows us the one of the aspect of the sodic miasm. And we see even in the central features of scabies, there is a lot of itching and a constant struggle with extreme discomfort. But that thing is not life threatening and not hopeless. So that's how we understand the psoric miasm and the psora. Even in case taking, we see it has beautifully explained that psoric personality is usually very much active and expressive. The patient has generally highs and lows. So it's kind of tug of war. On one side, when there is balance, he feels high. When he loses the balance, he feels low. So that kind of situation develops in it. Then we see with their understanding. So in psoric miasm, we see there is a struggle and a constant effort to maintain or recover that position, and we see they are very much hopeful, continuous struggle, hopeful on one side, and on the other side we see lot of struggle to maintain that thing. So when they are well, we see as if they are a kind of master. When they are deficient, they have to exert for that thing. And when in danger, they have to exert at extreme level. And finally, once they give up, there is end, death. So when he has given in case taking, the psoric persons are basically very much keen, if mind observant, and they describe the symptom very well. They may have very dreams which reflect his or her anxiety about not being to cope up with a particular situation and the struggle they have to do to cope up that. And it tells that it will demonstrate hypersensitivity to physical factors, will manifest the same struggle and activity. There is a reaction to one's surrounding, a response to environment. For example, light, noise, odors, etc. affects the psoric person and cause him in functional disturbances. Example, headache, nausea, etc. So these functional disturbances can be seen at various levels in the various systems, and they'll be accompanied by a lot of modalities. So we see in the mind state also, as well as in the physical state, in the functional state, it runs together. We see the same pattern in each state. So I hope we had some understanding about this remedy and the miasm sura, and I hope it will help us all in our practice to help the patients in a better way. Thank you. And for any queries or feedback, you can write to me at Dr. Pratik Jain at gmail.com.